Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
Great. Well, it was an awesome day, and I'm going to actually segue with a takeaway from a couple of sessions, just more, nothing specific necessarily, but a sort of high-level takeaway. I don't think we've talked about the upcoming, I'm going to try to coin a term here, we'll see how well it goes, the GApocalypse that's coming with the transition from Universal Google Analytics to GA4 in next July 2023. So this is a huge shift from what I wouldn't say was a wonderful analytics platform before in Google Universal Analytics, but to one that is virtually unusable in GA4. And there's there's a litany of issues with it beyond just the user interface, just in terms of the kinds of things it's tracking and how much it samples and all of these kinds. There's just major issues with it. I don't think I've seen a single positive review of GA4 versus Universal Analytics. But there's so many sessions at Local U Advanced that brought up Google Data Studio and piping data from an analytics package, from Search Console, from Google Business Profiles through a third-party connector into Google Data Studio. And it strikes me that actually your analytics replacement might actually be Google Data Studio moving forward. There's so many smart agencies out there and so many smart SEOs. Amanda Jordan gave a great presentation. Noah Lerner, Andrew Shotland talked about how they're piping data into a model to forecast how well an SEO campaign in a given topic might perform, and using that to sort of get buy-in from clients on what to pursue. It just strikes me that Google Data Studio may be the savior in all of this transition, and that the biggest question is there a platform out there besides Google Analytics that is API forward, that will somehow be able to import historical data from Google Universal. And I'm testing one of these right now, which I got the hat tip from John Henshaw, which is called Fathom Analytics. The interface is much, much simpler. They do seem to be very API driven. And I'm just wondering if that's a potentially viable option, especially for those of us who want to get out of the sort of Google ecosystem for tinfoil hat reasons or privacy reasons or whatever, fill in the blank. But I was just very impressed by the creativity and the depth of knowledge and experience around Google Data Studio by so many of the speakers at Local U. No thoughts. Mic drop.
Yeah, I have several thoughts. I still do some consulting, mostly with lawyers, and the reports they're getting from their age. I do sort of add-on consulting, sort of help them set strategic goals, help them set specific goals that they can go back to their agency with. And the reporting that they are getting from their agencies still sucks terribly, which is amazing to me. And what I realize in dealing with these lawyers is they don't need much. They need to know whether their calls are going up or going down. They need to know if they need to write a piece of content or not, if their search radius is expanding or contracting. They don't need much, but none of the reports I've seen give it, right? They show, and most of them show, like in the law field, the month-over-month reports, pretty lame because it's a very seasonal business. None of them show year over year, for example. They're like, hello? Who cares in January what you did in December? It's a different month, really, from a criminal lawyer point of view, right? And so the problem with Data Studio is that it still requires so much wrenching to get it into shape and then to make it useful. And so it requires an agency to do that. And even the ones I've seen, some of them are good and some of them aren't. So it still puts a big barrier between the small business and the numbers they need to know.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, the problem is conversions, right? So the only reason why I even use Google Analytics is that's where the conversion data lives. And I think the challenge for us is going to be, okay, if we onboard, let's say a lawyer client, I really want to know year over year comparison for conversions. And how are you going to do that if you can't compare to 2 years ago? That's frustrating. I want to be able to know how January this year performs from January last year. And usually you can do that with Google Analytics because most small businesses like lawyers would already have GA set up and some type of conversion tracking set up, so you can kind of see comparisons. But that's frustrating. Like that's going to be a huge problem next year for sure.
Yeah. Do you think, Joy, that most of the agencies you're working with will go to GA4?
Probably, but like I don't know. I hate it. Like I went in a few times and I'm like, I don't even know what to do in here. Like it is so just like confusing, and like some of the reports I look at in Google Analytics, I don't even know where they are. And Dana had to send me a like 8 reply tweet on how to get the landing page report. I'm like, it should not take 8 steps. Like this is a single report right now that you can look at to see what pages are converting the best. And like, I don't want to take 8 steps to get that information. So dumb.
Do you think some of this will be solved with better reporting? I mean,
maybe. I think the problem is like, I want to ditch it, but then I'm like, great, now I've got to somehow find a way to combine chats and calls and lead forms on your website into some other platform that will calculate it and then tell me which pages it's coming from. And it's just, it's a hot mess. I'm not excited about this at all.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was
muted, David?
Trying not to grace everyone with my coughing from this cold I've still got. But I was saying if there are other API forward analytics packages that can pipe into something like Data Studio or pipe through another product before they get into Data Studio, I mean, to me, that is now is the time to start investigating those options. And Greg Sterling tweeted before he went on vacation a really interesting survey about what percentage of marketers were going to just go along with the forced migration to GA4, something like 60 or 65%. I'm just like, what gives you any confidence? I thought it was an April Fool's joke. What gives you any confidence that GA4 is going to get any better than it is now? The experience of universal analytics has consistently degraded year over year over year. And if this is the starting point for GA4, just imagine how bad it's going to get in 4 or 5 years. So to me, now is the time to actively investigate other options, and particularly options that are API driven that can connect to a whole bunch of different tracking services, like a call rail or a call tracking metrics to bring in call data. Maybe there's a Gravity Forms connector for form conversions, those sorts of things. So,
do we know anybody that's done this comparison of these other tools?
No, I think it's a good. Yeah, I think it's a good place to go. I might have to tweet John Henshaw because he's really into this stuff and is very into getting people off of GA. So we shall see. To be determined. All right, and I think we're just about out of time. I feel like Greg has a much better way of closing our typical weeks, but appreciate your time, Joy, coming on here as a guest, and it was great to see you virtually at Local U this week. Hope to join you guys in Denver in July. And to those of you listening and watching, thanks so much for your time. If you're not yet a subscriber to the Near Media newsletter, you can go to nearmedia.co/subscribe. And we will be introducing some paid options coming up in the next couple of weeks. Join our subscription, our free service now to get substantial discounts once that paid offering comes out. So now's the time to go to nearmedia.co/subscribe. Hope you all have a great weekend. Hope the weather is finally turning to spring wherever you are. And we will talk to you next week on episode 60 of the Near Memo.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.